I'm James Eldon.
And I'm Abby Relic.
And this is
Most Compatible. Eh?
All right, well, welcome. Obviously, this is a little bit different setup than you might be used to as far as those of you that are watching. And that's because we have a guest today. Our guest is a partner at Novus Global, an executive coach and keynote speaker for teams, leaders, and CEOs. She developed 4 dating styles that help her clients achieve their relationship dreams and find long-term partners, as well as recognize patterns that might be getting in their way. She is currently working on a book that goes deeper into these 4 styles.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Janet Breitenbach.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in.
Also, Janet and I are friends.
Yes, we are.
Full disclosure.
We have competing 4th of July parties.
Oh, yeah, we do. We do have competing 4th of July parties, which almost happened last year, too.
That's true.
I got COVID.
That's true.
This interview is over. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Anyways.
So, 4 dating styles.
Yes.
So let's just get into it. Break these down for us.
Well, first we got to identify the pain point. So, like, why on earth would I develop 4 dating styles? There's enough assessments out there, right? If you're familiar with Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, Strengths Finders, DISC. You guys taken any of those tests?
No.
Oh my goodness.
You had me take the Enneagram.
Yes, I had to take the Enneagram.
But I don't remember what it was.
Right. Well, in the world of in personality assessments, like all those tests, I find that they can be very helpful because they give language to maybe things or patterns or habits that you felt yourself do, or think ways of thinking. And for me, they've been super helpful. Now, they're not the place to live forever, right? Not I'm this, so that means, right? But I found these to be the most common styles I've seen with friends, clients, myself as well. So a little bit about me. I was married at the wise old age of 21 years old, and then divorced at 30 years old, and thrust back into the dating world in Los Angeles, California.
Yes.
Probably around 32. So, and I grew up in a very faith-based background. So I really felt like there was no book, even though there's plenty of dating, maybe relationship books out there. There was no guide for what do I do? I had all these fears, I'm going to make a mistake again. How do I know, to date? Do I wait? Do I meet someone in person? Do I go on an app? It was just what I felt like is a shit show. And you look like you have a question.
I do. Because you brought some things up that I want to touch on before we get into these styles now, because you brought up a few tests that I'm not familiar with any of these.
Yes.
And I think that most of our listeners will or will not. I don't know. Can we go into at least the 4 most, or a couple of the most prominent tests, and what they're used for, what they cover, and what you discover?
Yeah. So, my personal favorite lately is Enneagram. It goes way back. You can go to Enneagram. I think it's, I forget the website now, but you can Google it. You can find a bunch of tests. Again, when they're used as a tool and not something that's telling you, oh, this is who I am, they can be very helpful. And Enneagram in specific has 9 personalities. And if you go deeper in the 9, there's subtypes. It's a whole world.
Is this the I'm, I don't even know what the Asmir or something like that. ASM.
What Harry Potter character am I?
No.
I feel like that's, for people who don't know, that's the closest thing they know to personality assessments is which
house do I belong to?
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
Which house? Where do I belong?
Exactly. But and there's quite a few, psychological studies that most of these tests are based off of. So you'll find a lot of similarities. All in all, they're meant to help you identify what drives you, where do you lean. And so that's why I actually think that most dating advice is actually kind of shit.
Sure.
Because it's black and white, it's cookie cutter.
Exactly.
And people tend to only be drawn to the advice that they will already want to hear.
I have a theory about that people don't want advice. They want to know that the decision they've already made is the correct one, or that somebody is supporting the decision they've already made.
Absolutely.
I don't buy it. I don't buy advice.
That can be the very common leaning, right? Like psychologically, our brain loves to be right. So even if it's about our own limitations, even if it's about our own fears, like the brain gets a hit from being right. So if I believe there's no one out there for me, I'm looking for evidence to prove that right.
Yes.
If I believe that I'm too good for this person, I'm looking for evidence to prove that that's right. So most dating advice, like, I mean, you guys have probably heard a litany of bad dating advice, like your perfect match is out there, or it'll come when you least expect it, or
right.
Like if they can't, have you heard this one? If they can't handle you at your worst, they can't handle you at your best, or they don't deserve you at your best, right?
So I've never heard that one.
Yeah, I've seen that one all over Instagram. If they can't,
oh yes,
which by the way, yes, Instagram advice. By the way, those all have really good intentions, right?
Right.
Like it's not like bad. The thing is, advice for like you, Abby, might be different than advice that I need,
right, in
a relationship. Right? Like I'm looking to just prove myself right if I don't slow down and just look at what are my habits, where am I getting in my own way? And so that's the very beginning of where these styles came from, because it's the work that I do with my clients.
Yeah.
Like I work with leaders, teams, we transform culture, and we talk about those habits, those like survival mechanisms that create a culture that self-sabotages. And so the very same things, the very same like human traits that get in their way, get in our way in the dating world. Right?
Yep.
But
it's your job.
Yeah.
It's like your job. So then
Exactly.
You're like, oh, I'm going to take the dating and put my job in there.
Exactly. And most people are getting a little bit more clear about, oh, I need an executive coach to help me hit my revenue goals. But when it comes to dating, most people think, oh, it'll just happen.
Right.
So there's no
That's how I like it.
Right. And there's, again, nothing wrong with that. And it's because sometimes that is how it happens.
Yeah.
Right. But then what I like about these kind of like styles that I've developed is, like, let me pay attention to where I might be getting in my own way. That may be a good trait. You know, our strengths can also be our weaknesses, as we know. So, but I'm curious to hear if you guys have thoughts on worst dating advice you've ever heard.
Okay. Can I start?
No, please do.
Okay, so when I first went out into the dating world after getting divorced, there was no one thing, but I had this small pool of women. There was probably like 5 or 6 of them that I would talk to about dating. And seriously, everything they told me was going to happen, the opposite would happen. Like, they'd be like, oh, I remember like one guy, it was like I went out on a bunch of dates and he kept wanting to see me over and over. And I was just like dating whoever I wasn't. And I just told him, I was like, hey, I need to not see you for a while because I'm like dating a bunch of people. And they were like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to reach out to that guy if you want to see him again. I was like, okay, we'll see. I didn't have to do anything. It just came right back in like a month later.
Yeah.
So that was, I don't know. That taught me, I was like,
it's not always that black and white.
It isn't black and white, and it's really about you.
Yeah.
It's not about everybody else's perspective, because it was like I was watching it happen over and over. Whatever they would say was going to happen for sure.
Yeah.
The opposite thing would happen, and I'd be like, guess you were wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say it's not black and white, but it should be based on vision. Like, it should be based on what you want. Most people get really caught up in the shoulds of like, oh, this is what dating should look like, especially from the world I come from, faith-based, like Christianity, all the ways like certain good ideas get kind of like
model,
like abused or misused, right? Like a big one in the Christian world was like only date people that you think you're going to marry,
right? Which
you can imagine the plethora of bad relationships, divorces that follow that advice. And sometimes it comes from a good place. It's like, don't just like date around and have no clear intention, and right, like, so again, for someone who's just like willy-nilly, I don't know what I want. I'm just like abusing everyone, using everyone.
Right.
Maybe slow it down and think about, but then for someone else who's like really in their head about like, I need to do it right. Like the perfectionism
It
of the
needs
world,
to
right?
be like this.
Yeah. They're taking that advice thinking, oh, this is the right way to do it. When actually what they need is to go experience some other people.
Right.
I mean, is there a right way to do it then?
I don't think so. I think that there's leanings. I think that there's like healthy spectrums. I think that there's like general like vision, like what do you want? Which, by the way, this, for example, is only for people who actually say, like, or are willing to say, I want a long-term relationship.
Right.
And so again, even that, like, you have to start with that, right? There's some people in this world that are like, it's not for me.
Right.
That's okay, right? But one of the types actually I'm thinking of when we go through them is generally the type is not willing to say that out loud. They want it, but they won't admit it to themselves that I actually want that because it might feel too painful to think that what if I don't get it?
Right.
So that's like the baseline.
I know which one that is.
You know which one that is. I've already shared the dating styles with your associate. Have you been thinking about those since I...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then on that note, let's get into them.
Well,
let's get
time out, but
Wait,
do you have... What's your
my
worst?
worst advice.
Yeah.
I think it was when I was kind of in something somewhat new. And I think it was at work too late or something like that. And they're like, she had texted or something like that. And I had some friends like, don't respond. Don't respond. Just And I took it. I'm like, yeah. And then it made her worried. And then it was just terrible.
Don't respond.
Don't respond.
Say it'll make her want you more or something like that.
Oh my goodness.
Terrible.
Yeah. Like anything that's like, I have a really weird one. This would be dating advice, but it was marriage advice because I was married so young. And of course it was a shit show. So my first year of marriage, we were struggling, fighting all the time. He had left to go stay with his family, and I was like spinning, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's happening. I went to a therapist who told me to just call him and let him know that on Friday, I'm going to make a dinner for you, and you can come or you cannot come.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, the advice was just like, show him that you're a good wife. And of course, I called him and told him. He was like, don't you get it? I'm not happy in this relationship. I was like, that was stupid advice. Why did I listen to that?
And it was a therapist.
It was a therapist, and God bless him, like he didn't know what
he was trying.
But were you aware? I mean, had that hit you yet? Or is it like, I'm just going to stay at my parents. I need to get away for a little bit. But it wasn't blatant, like, I'm not happy in this. Or was it just kind of vague and just like, I need to get away?
It definitely was vague. We just knew, like, we weren't happy. But it was, like, my attempt to, like, my codependent, now I know a codependent attempt to, like, get him back. Instead of being curious, like, what do we actually want? What's missing? Like, actually slowing down. It was like, what can I do to, like, fix this?
Right.
Which would always have been temporary anyway.
Sure, but to me that doesn't sound like bad advice, only because you were not aware of the actual situation, and now all of a sudden
the therapist definitely wasn't, right? Like, or there wasn't enough context on either of our sides, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So instead of like thinking through communicating, it was like, here's some black and white advice. It's helped maybe a handful of people. Right? Instead of like, hey, like let's dig into you, Janet. Like, let's find out, like, where might you be getting in your own way, right? Which is like the ownership lens, which is tough sometimes. It's like, ugh, I have to go deep.
Sure. Yeah. Well, because when I went through my separation, I kind of, it was like we weren't. Well, I wasn't sure where it was going. I think she had already made up her mind, but in her statement or preference or whatever it was, whatever you want to call it, was, I just need some space. Mm-hmm. We don't know what that means.
Yeah. It's super vague.
So, when you think you've given a day or two of space and that's, and then you kind of make some kind of initiation. Oh, no. The space means leave me alone and maybe I'll come talk to you when I'm ready.
Yeah. 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 It could have 10 different meanings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So instead of like just asking like, hey, what do you think is needed right now? Do you want me to stay away for a week or I don't know, whatever that is, right? Like, again, it's like, curiosity trumps like
Right.
black and white. Like this is how things should be, right?
Well, I think we also want to make things work. Well, if we're on the rejected side.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely that desire. And so it's like that's the whole like slowing down. I wonder how I'm contributing to this. Like where am I complicit to whatever this breakdown is, right? And that's really the purpose of these styles is like, all right, look, there's also going to be bad dates out there. There's going to be people that you're not compatible with.
Right.
There's going to be people that are just not a good fit. Your values don't align. And what you can work on is yourself. Like that's what you have control over. It's like, okay.
Always.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's very empowering. It's like, all right, like I have an option to actually change things instead of being kind of like held to what may or may not come.
Right.
Right. Which my goal is always to give like my clients their agency back. Like, how do I help you actually get clear, actually do the work on yourself, actually start to move in such a way that you're creating your future rather than being a victim of your future.
Right.
Should values always align?
I don't think there's a should, but it definitely helps.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
You know? So I think, you know, there's just some common things. Like if one person values, leisure, you know, and my husband and I have different opinions of leisure. You know, he has probably like 10 hobbies. I have maybe one
yes.
that I've developed. But also, so they weren't perfectly aligned, but we also do like have shared value for like community, for having people over, for hosting, for loving on our friends. And I knew that pretty early on. And I knew that was a value for me. Like I wanted to have like open door policy if our friends wanted to swing by, for them to just be able to come over. So I knew that was important to me. And so the first few times we were, you know, both kind of coexisting, and I saw his excitement, like, yeah, bring him over. Like, yeah, let's do it. Right. I knew, ooh, that's a value that's aligning. Now, if he had said like, I don't know, or then maybe 4 times, 5 times, and it's like never okay. And, you know, it's not like not because he's tired or anything, but just like, oh, I just don't like people coming over. I'm more private. I've been like, oh, that's going to be tough because I really value this. This is really important to me. So that definitely, I mean, you're with each other 24/7 sometimes. Like you're with each other a lot. So it's just going to make it harder. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's things that like we still do, like just his love for cars, and
yes,
and some of it's rubbed off on me, and some of my things that I love has rubbed off on him, right?
Right.
Which that's the beauty of getting to co-create together.
Sure.
I love it.
All right, let's do it. Let's break these styles down.
All right, let's do it. So a couple of things I want to say about this before I introduce them. So I developed these 4 dating styles, explained using self-deprecating animal metaphors, because I think that the more that we can not take ourselves seriously, to be able to playfully look at, ooh, I do that. I totally go on dates and I do that. Beautiful. I think it makes it easy to do that. And sometimes animals are just a great metaphor for how we are. So again, keep in mind, if you resonate with one style, it doesn't mean that's who you are all the time. That just means it's your leaning. In fact, when I was sharing them with Abby, she was like, oh, I have a little bit of this one and I have a little bit of this one.
I know which two.
You do? That's great, right? So be playful with them. Be loving to yourself. So we'll start with the hawk, which is the one that I resonate with the most. And this is actually how this started, because just the feedback I got from Ryan, my now husband, on what it was like to go on a date with me. So right. The hawk is probably what it sounds like. Typically type A, very goal-oriented, very positive, like generally very positive, business mode, like on the extreme end, like I need to know if you're my future spouse or not.
Right. Like, when are we going to meet? Mm-hmm, when are we? I need a date and a time.
Yep. Oh, you're
we
2
need
minutes
to make a
late.
plan.
What's going on?
Yep.
Right. And so to this day, Ryan will joke when we're telling our story that his first 20-minute interview went well. So that business mode, which can be great because typically the positive of that is like hawks know what they want.
Yes.
Right. They've often been told that they're intimidating. We tend to challenge people verbally when we feel taken advantage of. I tend to get annoyed when guys don't ask questions. And by the way, this could go for either gender, but I'll probably speak through I. Because I've really met people on both sides that really feel the same. Doesn't matter the gender. So we've talked a little bit about like, they didn't ask any questions.
Yes.
Which, by the way, it also is nice. So everyone out there, if you take a person out on a date, ask some questions. Just at least some questions.
Yes.
Something. Freedom tends to be important. So, it's hard to let someone take care of them too. So
that's interesting.
There's like a level of independence, right? So we're looking for this partner that like sometimes the rub can be that like I want to fiercely be independent and I actually desperately want to be and feel taken care of.
Right.
But I'm afraid that will take away my independence.
Right. Ooh.
Does that resonate at all?
Yes, it does. But it's like unexpected for this one because to me the hawk is like there is like they have their needs and they want to see all of their needs met.
Yes.
But then so that and not to say they're needy, but that is like it's all about needs.
Yeah.
And then when you throw in the independence thing, it's true too. Yeah. It is like there's like a scared like but
like
are you gonna are you gonna fuck me up?
Yeah. Yeah, I find that there's good and bad to that, right? Because the clarity is what's great for the hawk, right?
Right.
So, I'm pretty sure 2 or 3 times that I was in a dating situation within the first 4 weeks, I was like, sorry, we got to break up, Sorry, it's not working.
I can't. Oh my God, this is my cousin Sarah.
Yeah, okay, great.
She broke up with her husband like 10 times. But they got married.
I hope they're not listening.
I hope they are.
10 times before? Or,
yes.
Okay.
She just like, I can't, Evan, bye.
Yeah,
like,
like, it's like, it's encroaching on my independence. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Did you hear anything familiar in that at all?
Yeah, not at all. Keep going. Keep going.
All right. So the next one is the zebra. And to the stripes of the zebra, they tend to blend in. They're the most adaptable. So they actually can be really fun, awesome first dates. They're like the cool girl that guys love because they often are also very helpful. And again, I've seen this for guys too. Like they're the guy. Oh, the girl wants to have that guy around. Like, oh, he's so helpful. Like, takes me to the airport, helps me move.
Right.
All that stuff. So in that way, they can also get friend zoned very fast. Yeah, they can get friend zoned because they blend in a bit, right? So oftentimes their voice doesn't come through, like their wants and their needs. So like what the zebra needs to know is like their wants and needs are valuable, are necessary for that opinion. They tend to become the emotional girlfriend or boyfriend. And they tend
What
to.
does that mean?
Yeah, so never actually like the real like, hey, we're partners building, we're choosing to date each other because we know where we're going. So we're not actually dating, but like, oh, I'm struggling, so I'm going to call you, right? Like, oh, by the way, that doesn't mean that if that happens, that's what's happening.
Totally.
Right? But if you find yourself, again, it's about patterns. If you find yourself in this over and over and over again, the question the zebra can ask themselves, it's just funny saying it, like the zebra.
The zebra.
The question the zebra can ask themselves is like, oh, I wonder where I'm not speaking up for what I want. I'm not being clear. I'm not having that hard conversation. I'm not like...
Right.
Like, hey, what are we? Or where are we going? Like, what do we want to build together? Like,
right.
Because if not, no problem. But I might go investing my time somewhere else.
Elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah.
What emotional boyfriend or girlfriend is like a friend that you call, right? They're just a friend. You're not dating, but you call them with your problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like that string that's like being stringed along a little bit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
I love watching your faces.
The light bulbs.
That's the zebra. And then we'll go back over all of them to go like, okay, what's the medicine for each? Like, okay, where do you need to ground? But the third one is the crocodile.
Yes.
Now, this was a hard one to name because, of course, no one probably wants to see themselves as a crocodile. And crocodiles are fierce, strong, loyal. They're incredible relationship partners once they get over the hump of dating, because they tend to be a little bit more guarded, a little bit more jaded. They're very hardworking. But in a way, they're kind of they work hard to like prepare for all possible negative scenarios.
Yes.
So they hoard information. Like, I need to know everything about this before I take that risk, right? Let me just look at all the possible moves, and I'm going to observe. I'm going to stay back until I know that it's safe
to go in.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So they tend to lean a little bit more private. It doesn't mean that they're not social or anything like that, but they lean to be more private, not quick to let someone in. And on the least healthy side, they can be a little bit more defensive, and that's why I like the crocodile snap.
Yep.
That was the closest thing. And yeah, they can tend to really overthink. So like overthinker would be like the trait that's most associated with the crocodile, because it's like, I'm guarded, I'm overthinking, like, do I do this, do I not do this, I don't know, whereas the hawk is a little bit more decisive.
Right.
Do you know anyone who's like,
oh my God, yes.
Crocodile? Yes,
I know.
Are you thinking of people and names?
This is my type.
Really?
This is my type.
Okay,
no, not me.
Oh, yeah.
This is who I tend to be drawn to.
Oh, interesting.
I'm more of a zebra.
Interesting.
I'm a zebra / another one too.
Yep.
But these are the dudes I go for.
Nice. Yep.
100%.
Yeah. And again, pros and cons, strengths and weakness to each type. So that's great. The fourth and last is the gazelle. Okay, so they're the romantic. They love. They tend to stay in scenarios way too long because they lack the clarity that the hawk has. You know, they want to be around. They struggle to be alone, but they're weirdly also afraid of commitment. It's a weird dichotomy. They tend to be a little bit more directionless and aimless, and they tend to be the one that, like, if you ask them, like, hey, what do you want in someone? Or like, when would you love to, like, be in a relationship? They're like, oh, it'll just happen. I don't want to think about that, like,
if it's meant to be,
it's meant to be. It's meant to be, right?
Don't worry.
They lean positive, right? So not like the crocodile. They're very positive. They think it's going to happen.
Right.
But then they continue to find themselves in these situations where, they're still, kind of in a relationship they don't want, or they go back because they don't want to be alone. But they also have that grass is greener on the other side. Kind of effect, right? So because they're romantic, so everything's like about the ideal, right? They're very idealistic, but they lack the specificity of the goal-oriented piece of the hawk. But unlike the zebra, they have a little bit more of a clear opinion at times. Like they'll talk up and down about like love and how relationships should be, but then they won't get clear about what do I actually want. For myself. Yeah, that is the gazelle, the romantic.
Man.
Yes.
I was gazelling all over the place. That was like post divorce. I was like, I am that's what I did.
I love
was like,
it.
Doo-doo-doo-doo.
So I like that you can also have like seasons. Like, ooh, I had a season of gazelling, and then I have a season of hawking.
Yeah, that's coming next.
I love it. Yeah, so those are the four.
Which one do you
styles.
think you are? Well, you said the hawk. Yeah.
So I really do think, I think especially post-divorce, because there's a lot of fear, like, I don't want to make the same mistakes again. I often tell the story about how I think 4 or 5 dates in with Ryan, I said, I really just want someone who has a value for growth. And when I asked him about this now, I was like, yeah, when you asked it, I was like, yeah, growth, sure, whatever. But like, that's how serious I was. Like, the hawk is very serious. It's like, I can't do what I did before. So I need someone who's self-aware, who's committed to therapy, who's really enlightened, right? It's like, okay, hold on, slow down. Although those are good things to look for, right? Yes. Like, for someone who leans that way already, like, the medicine for the hawk is play. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, just like, let's not put everything on this first or second date, right? A
little bit of like, let's see what happens.
Yeah, a little bit of let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Let's be curious, right? Because the advice I don't need is like, know what you want and ask for it. Because I will do that all day, every day. So I don't need that advice.
Right.
And then, of course, the zebra, the adaptable one, doesn't need to hear like, go with the flow.
No.
Because they will do that for 10 years.
I will do that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, exactly. Like, just, hang out, become friends, see where it goes. Mm-hmm. And it's like 2 years later, like, he says he's not really want something serious. But, so we're not, like, I literally have had many experiences with friends who, continue to be around for someone who's very clearly said, I don't want a serious relationship.
Right.
And then they'll convince themselves, like, yeah, I don't want it either.
And you go away and you do a bunch of, your brain makes it right. Mm-hmm. Your brain's like, oh, yeah, no,
absolutely,
this is fine. When you...
Mm-hmm. And then you come out of it and it's like, what was I thinking? Mm-hmm. Like, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, so the zebra, the medicine for the zebra is accountability, right? Like, and in fact, it can be valuable to go, hey, I'm going to tell a friend, like, if I don't find anything, like, clear in 2 weeks, I've already been there with them for 6 months, then I need that accountability.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to say no and put it down and keep moving.
Yes.
Right? So accountability is the medicine for the zebra. What were the two that you said you relate to?
Oh, I'm zebra gazelle.
Okay.
So but I think most of the time I'm I don't know. I think I'm a blend of the two.
Yep.
What one? Yeah, what do you think you are?
Oh, I would have to say I'm probably mostly zebra.
Zebra? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and how do you see that showing up?
No, there was going to be a quiz. I have a tendency to go with the flow. And yeah, I will play the I'm not quite sure what I want kind of thing.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just because that's me being guarded. Was that Crocodile?
Yeah, Crocodile. Maybe a little Crocodile.
Yeah, just because it's I got burned once before. And so it's subconscious, if anything. I don't know if it's, making that conscious decision to do that. There might just be that hesitation.
Exactly. Well, and most of these things aren't conscious, right? They're very subconscious. They're very, there are protective mechanisms. And we know enough psychologically now to know that, like, we have these survival needs, right? And I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
But this we actually do with teams and CEOs. It's like, hey, there are 4 survival needs: the need to look good, feel good, be right, and be in control. And not look good overall in the future. It's like, look good now. Like, how do I look like I have it all together? How do I feel good now? Avoid conflict or avoid the pain.
Right.
How do I be right about the fact that this is what I need, or this is who I need, right? Or be in control, right? So whenever those are existing, we're not necessarily in the driver's seat of our behavior.
Right.
Right. Where we're kind of, it's like that
our
moment when
subconscious is just taking control.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's like those moments when you do something or say something, and then a few days later you're in the shower and you kind of, like, you have that, like, thought, why did I do that? Why did I say that thing? It's because your survival needs were driving the show, was driving your behavior, was driving the words coming out of your mouth, right? And so it takes, part of it is like just slowing down and going, okay, what was driving me in that moment, and how can I start to look for the signs of, that's happening again here, right?
Right.
So if you recognize your patterns, what are the next steps? What do you do? How do you bail yourself out?
We got two more. Two more to do.
Well, I mean, it's a good. So it is a good question, because so I've shared the kind of the medicine for each, and obviously that's one word,
Right.
Sure.
But the crocodile, for instance, like the medicine for them is trust, right? It's like, how do I trust myself? How do I begin to trust that things will generally be okay, right? Because ultimately, it's like, I need to it's a mentality of I need to figure it out, and I need to protect myself.
Right.
So for the crocodile, it's what are steps that I can take to begin to take baby steps of risk and trust myself. Because a lot of times for the crocodile, we look back, we look at our past experiences, and we go, I can't trust myself because I made that mistake. Mm-hmm. So then we're going, since I can't trust myself, I'm just not going to make any decisions, instead of building that muscle of, okay, I take a risk. Look, I was in a bad scenario. I knew enough to get myself out of it.
Right.
So I can now begin to learn to trust myself. Right. So that's a crocodile. I like the breaths. Those are my favorite responses.
They say a lot. They say a lot.
They do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm curious what created the
because it's like I'm just thinking of like the crocodile is like, so like we're all wounded, right?
Yeah.
But their wounds they take so seriously. Mm-hmm. So it's, I can't help but feel for them.
Yeah.
And I probably have a little bit of that like post divorce, because we've all been through shit.
Totally.
So like you adopt some protection mechanisms, but I like that there's a thing. Yeah, it is like the medicine.
Yeah.
Like you just,
it's like, okay, like how can I take those steps of trusting myself again?
Right.
And letting someone in, right? Not swing to like, oh, that means I have to let everyone in.
Right.
Full speed, right?
Gazelling.
Exactly, gazelling. Speaking of the gazelle, the gazelle's medicine is clarity.
Right.
So when I've worked with someone who has this leaning, it can be very uncomfortable at first to answer questions like, hey, what do you want? Like, paint me a picture of like your ideal partnership. Like, what are your values together? What are you guys doing? What kind of life are you building? But it's like, and it's sometimes for the gazelle, it's like,
yeah,
I don't want to think about that. Right. Like, so it's just like, again, baby steps on painting a picture of a vision for what you actually want, and in some ways adopting a little bit of hawk, like saying, okay, like I'm going to give myself permission to at least dream, to consider. It may not look like that. It may look a little bit different, but that's okay.
Right. Because they're going to let go of things easy. Like if it doesn't look exactly like their vision, that's their strength. They're going to accept it.
Exactly.
But if you have no vision.
Exactly.
Then.
Yep. There's the, for the gazelle, it's like they're often distracted kind of like by this kind of ongoing commitment to change and self-help. Generally, but again, they lack the specificity. So then what am I actually doing to move towards that? So again, that's a good start. Like that's a fantastic start. And it's like, okay, how do I move forward? And so bring in community, bring in like someone to help you. Like, all right, let's talk through this, So those are the 4 dating styles.
Cool.
Thoughts?
I love this. And you're writing a book.
Yes, so I'm writing a book on this because I think I find that it's going to be valuable. There's a lot of dating advice out there, but I've actually only found 2 to 3 people that I really love to follow when it comes to like really helpful dating advice. Because I do feel like that, to me, I call it like the that kind of no man's land between second date you ever go out with someone and like month 6
Yeah.
of a dating relationship, that
Yeah.
feels like, I don't know what we're doing.
What's going on? Yes.
Like,
exactly.
it's like this weird world where you're playing house with someone, but you don't know if they're going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, am I committed to this person? Like, do we keep going on dates? Like, do we say I love you? At what point do we say I love you? Like,
Right.
at what point do we talk about kids? Like, at what point? Like, this just kind of like this. I literally remember feeling that during the stage where I felt like it's rocky roads. Like, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just guessing. And again, it worked, and I'm thankful for the tools that I had on my tool belt from what I do with my clients, you know, and having to coach myself, and there was no way to hide, you know, especially in my world, because I have a coach, I work at a coaching firm, so like people are always asking questions, and like, so there was no way I could just self-sabotage and be in my own world. But I remember thinking, man, it would be really helpful to like kind of point this out ahead of time. Oh, I have hawk-like behavior, you know, like
hawking.
Maybe calm down on the, I need someone who's committed to growth, you know, and you don't ask me questions. Now, I will say this, where it did help or work is when Ryan and I first met, we met on Bumble, and we were texting back and forth on Bumble, and I noticed that I was asking him a lot of questions, and he was just, you know, responding. Mm-hmm. And at that point, the one thing that I had kind of identified for me was like, I really want someone who's curious about me. Now, not bad that I thought that. What I didn't realize that he later explained was like, well, that's because I was already interested in you. I didn't need to know anything else about you. And, like, I was just wanting to perform for you, like, and answer your questions that you were answering for me. So I found that out later, which to me was super helpful. It's actually one of the 5 to 10 things that got me wanting to talk about this, because I realized in my mind, I thought that's what I need to look for. Someone who asks questions.
Yes.
And it turns out the guy was just trying to like answer my questions. You know, he's like, I don't have any questions. But what I did do is I shared that with him. I was like, hey, it's so great talking to you. I don't know that we're a fit, but we both had a shared like love of scripts and movies and creativity and storytelling. So I was like, if you ever want to grab coffee and just talk storytelling, I'm happy to. And he said, oh, why do you think we're not a good fit? Is it because I'm not good looking? I know. It was the sweetest thing. And I said, oh, no, actually, it's just because I know what I want is someone who is curious about me and asks questions. And he immediately like pivoted and just started asking me questions. Yeah. And by the way, like for anyone listening, like if someone gives you that gift of feedback, you know, it's not like, oh, it has to happen only if I'm not told it. Like it worked for me. I was like, wow, this guy didn't like get hurt or like run and go, well, how dare you? You know, he was just like, okay, I'll ask you questions.
And it's also like when you give the feedback and it's more neutral. Mm-hmm. It's not like you are a horrible person because you didn't ask me questions. Exactly. It's like it's about you, right?
It's about just what I want, not he's bad or wrong.
And he's like, oh, I can do that. Exactly. No problem. Okay, here you go. You happy? Great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, shouldn't all feedback be neutral? And does that come into the delivery? Or the phrasing? I mean,
I could do a whole 90-minute webinar just on feedback.
That'll be part 2.
But yes, I mean, one of the things that not should it be neutral, but I do find it to be more resourceful if you relate to it as neutral, right? So when I'm relating to feedback as I'm wrong or bad, I certainly don't want to hear it.
Right.
And in that case, for whatever reason, he was open or had the confidence enough to like not take it personal, and it was a super awesome trait that I saw in him in that moment, and it was enough to like keep me going. I was like, oh, this guy is cool, right? Like he's open to hearing that, and he pivots right away. He's like receptive to what I'm saying, like I want.
Right.
How far into the app were you at this point when you met Ryan?
I think I did the whole on and off thing, on and off again relationship.
On and off that. Oh,
on and off
relationship.
The app. On and off relationship with the app.
Gotcha.
Let's see. At that point, I mean, I had also been in another relationship about a few months earlier. That was a bit of an on and off thing. And in between, I would hop on it for like a couple weeks at a time.
Were you on any other apps, or was it just the Bumble?
It was mostly Bumble. I think I also at some point between my divorce and probably around between 32 and 37, I was on and off like Bumble, Hinge. I think there's another one.
Tinder.
I actually don't think I ever did Tinder. I might have, but I just really liked Bumble, and it worked for me. Yeah. And then of course did the whole, like ask friends, like, who do you want to introduce me to?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, again, as a hawk, I was clear.
Hey, I'm open for business.
I know what I want. And it turned out it was with someone at Bumble, right? And I don't think, again, to the black and white dating advice.
Yeah.
It's not about is Bumble the way or is asking your friends for, introductions the way. But that's how it happened with us, and I think it has more to do with your mindset, truly.
Right.
Sure. What? Now I'm curious as well. So, were there any particular like incidences that happened on any of the dates that you went out? There was like, oh no, I'm out right now.
Ooh.
Like, I'm curious.
And
I'm always fascinated by the stories where it's like, that's not at all what I'm looking for, and I can't believe that you're actually out here.
In general or with Ryan?
No, in general. if Ryan did something, I'm curious about that too. But no, I mean in general.
Oh, I'm sure he will. I'll show it to him. We'll watch it together and we'll eat popcorn. Well, a funny one that I like to tell, and this guy is awesome. We actually still somewhat stayed connected, but we went on a date. Some mutual friends introduced us. We had seen each other in passing. We went on this date, and he asked me about I happened to mention oh yeah, I've been married before, and he asked, oh, what happened? And typically I would know at that point. I knew enough, maybe on the first date I don't want to explain my breakup divorce story, but he's asking, okay, I'll share. So I try to make it not the long version. I kind of keep it somewhat short, but there's no way around some of the vulnerable pieces of it.
Right.
There was it was the darkest moment of my life. We both contributed to it. I made mistakes, he made mistakes, and I go into it a little bit, and it's this really vulnerable story. And then I wrap up the story. Maybe I go for 4 minutes, and then he goes, so what do you like to do for fun? Do you like to work out?
So, thanks for that.
And I wasn't really in an emotional space. I just went, sometimes, yeah. I just
sure.
I just go with it, I'm just but I just remember thinking, oh, see, this is, and to this, or not to this day, because I'm not dating anymore. But from then on, I told myself, even if someone asks, just wait, just don't tell them until a second date. There's no reason. Yeah. But it was still actually helpful to get a picture of how is this person when you share a vulnerable story?
Sure.
Yeah.
What do they read it? And also who knows? Maybe he was okay, that story's wrapped up. Let's keep going.
Moving on.
Yeah.
At least you I don't know. You did the thing, right? So you tested it out. First date, I'm going to go here.
Totally.
Didn't really work. Okay. Yeah. Not going to do that again. That's dating.
Yeah, that is dating.
I mean, had you made your decision at that point? Once that that transition from that question to the next, it was all right, we're done.
It was more like a yellow flag. I was maybe we're not compatible, because to me there's also, and I'm just saying this now as I'm thinking that, there's also a value for that somewhat emotional awareness in conversation. And Ryan and I miss each other all the time, but there was a desire for that. And so I remember, I don't know if this will work. And we still we chatted here and there afterwards, but it just kind of fizzled. We never went on a second date. So maybe it was mutual, so.
There's our fireworks. I was waiting for that to happen during this recording.
And then that happened last night at the bar, too.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, somebody blew up this big, like, M80. And my brother and my sister-in-law, and she was, like, under the table. I was like, it's goodness. Okay,
yeah.
Hannah. It's okay.
I know we're in Los Angeles.
I know what
it's North Hollywood.
I know.
Awesome.
So what was there ever in your app experiences, what's your worst red flag that you ever had to deal with?
Okay, I have a very specific
And then how did you deal with it?
Well, it was even just in like a back and forth chat conversation. It was with someone who wasn't really giving me a lot. Like we were kind of trying to chat, and every question I asked, they'd respond with like maybe 1 word, 2 words, maybe 3 words. And I was like very curious about that because I was like, I'm like trying to get anything, from this person to get an idea of who they are, right? Because it's all just data, right? Like,
right.
Okay, like, oh, what do you like to do in LA or whatever the questions were that we used to ask, right? And I was like, oh. And at that point, and this is what's interesting, at that point, especially for women on apps, we often get like 20, 25, sometimes more like matches.
Yeah.
And so
we've discussed this a lot. It's different.
But I just think it's because there's probably a disproportionate like amount, right? So sure. Or whatever, and also who swipes right to who and who swipes left to who, right? So I would have like 20 to 25 matches to filter through. I'm not going on 20 to 25 coffee dates, sure. Right? Yeah. So I'm wanting to like get to know each person, like see what kind of sticks, what stands out. And this person was not giving me anything. I was like, so I just finally said that, or I was like, hey, I really, I feel like I'm struggling to really get to know you a little bit. Like, you're giving me really short answers. He's like, well, I'm more of an in-person, get to know each other at coffee people, which is fair. So I said, right. Totally. That makes sense. The problem is, like, I have like 20 matches and I'm trying to get an idea of like who you are, which is just an honest thing. Sure. But he got so offended.
Yes, he did.
And started to play a sarcastic response. But, oh, I'm sorry you have 100 and, I think he said like, sorry you have 100 people that you're talking to. It's like, yes. Dude, I'm just trying to get to know you. Like, I get that it's hard on an app, but like, that's the nature of the game.
Yes.
Right here. And of course, like, he just started to kind of go off over chat, and I just blocked him. I was like, bro.
You got an idea of who he really was.
Exactly.
That's like, just be honest, right? You don't have to be mean. Just be honest, and then you're gonna. They cannot hide for very long. This is what I've learned about men. Like, they can't keep it in. Mm-hmm. They're gonna let you know.
Yeah, and it goes for men and women, right? Like, because. As we know, I feel like as a society, we're a little bit more aware of like certain like kind of emotional intelligence behaviors and whatnot. And so I think it used to be like people like that would just attract people who are looking to prove themselves. So it's like, oh no, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what I would have said, if I wasn't like aware that that's not healthy like behavior. Probably would have said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, no, it's not that. It's just, I'm really,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm like, no.
That type of thing will show up with anybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Fast.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about dating advice. We've talked about bad dating advice. Is there such thing as good dating advice in that regard?
I would say there's good dating questions, less than advice. Like, I find that inquiry-based help just helps so much more than insight-based help. So, because, and that's just simply like a tool that I've learned through coaching, because typically if I'm giving advice, one, even if it is good advice, you're less likely to apply that because it didn't come from yourself. It came from me, right? Like, when I'm in an unhealthy situation, you can give me all the good advice in the world, and I'm not going to hear it because I'm not connected to what I want, and it's not my choice.
Right.
So inquiry-based like advice help is like asking questions like, hey, what do you really want? So whenever someone texts me, because a lot of people know that I'm a coach, and I'll get a lot of, women, men who will text me and say like, hey, I don't know what to do in this situation. I will almost never just say anything blanket. I'll just start asking a lot of questions, because most people aren't asked those questions. Most people aren't asking themselves those questions, like, what's your vision? Like, what do you actually want? Have you actually spent time really thinking about that? Right? Like, which that question alone, if you just went home, like, journaled for 30 minutes on, like, what do I want? Like, most people don't slow down enough to, like, take the time to actually answer that question. Because typically, if you know what you want, now you have a reason to have the hard conversations. Right? Because you're going after something versus I'm going to have a hard conversation just because I should and it's healthy, or, you know.
Right. Or something feels weird or like,
If it's not, it's just like feedback, good feedback. So one of the things we teach teams is feedback not aligned to someone's vision is just your opinion. And so typically it won't land as well. It won't have an effect. It won't have an impact, because it's like me telling you, like, I think you should be a better swimmer. It's like, is that your vision?
Yeah. So
no.
Who cares?
You know, like, who cares?
Be like, bye.
Right? It's just like your opinion. Like, if I have an opinion, like, hey, I really think you should, you know, go on more dates. You know, it's like, well, what's your vision? Let's start with the vision, then work backwards from there. Because once I know what I want and or what I don't want, right, then at least we can actually create a strategy, a plan to go get there.
Sure.
Right?
So based on these 4 types, are there specific, once somebody determines what type they are, based on your 4 types, are there specific questions that relate to each type, or do the questions that you just proposed a second ago apply to all of them? Or are there specific ones that do apply to? Yeah,
I do think vision questions apply to all of them. And part of what I'm going to be putting in the book is a lot, like, it's kind of going to be a book/workbook. You know, it's going to be like questions for you to think through, and even feedback to give yourself. Most of the time we actually know how we're getting in our own way. We just haven't thought, like, okay, what am I doing? Right? To me, it's like the process of being asked the question, then the brain works to go find the answer, right? That's why even just like question-based workbook studies can be so powerful. Now, if I'm really in my avoidance, I won't even pick the book up, right? But that's where it can be helpful to have, like, an ear, you know, someone that you trust, a mentor. And most good, like, mentors, like, even just friends will know, like, hey, like, I'm going to ask you some questions before I just give you blanket advice, right? But if you find a good coach will know to ask you powerful questions, like, what do you want? Paint a picture. It's 5 years from now. Imagine that you're living the life of your dreams. What's happening? Who are you with? What are you building together, right? To me, my favorite kind of let's say mindset or framework for thinking about a potential long-term partnership is, what do you want to build? Not like, who do you need to find to make you happy? Mm-hmm. As most people think in terms of, I need to find the right fit that will make me happy, instead of I can choose to create, like, happiness in my life and find a partner who we can, instead of like, we're here to make each other happy, you know, pointing towards each other, we're working on a mission to build something. It could be a family, it could be a business, it could be a lifestyle, right? Right. Shared values, working towards something.
Nice, Janet.
Is there a time frame for this book?
Great question. I'm hoping to have it. This is great doing this too, because I've been I'm actually going to be working with someone to help me with it, and we're going to get it published. Hopefully, at least finished by end of this year, published mid next year, 2024. I know that's a long time from now. In the meantime, you can always reach out to me and ask me questions.
That was my next question. Where can people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram. Janet.Breitenbach is my handle. I love...
Can we go ahead and spell that? Just
yes, of course.
Spell it in the comments.
Of course.
Fair enough.
Put it in the comments. Yeah, Janet Breitenbach. That's my husband's name. Yeah. Breitenbach. Look how fast I can spell it. I've only been married for 2.5 years, and I'm really God. But it is interesting because it was such an easy name for me, but like everywhere I go now, I didn't realize that what I was marrying into was having to spell the name Breitenbach. everywhere I go. If I'd known that, I might have really thought about my vision before I got married.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, but
that's the deal breaker.
Yeah,
that last name's too complicated. I can't do it.
Spell that for the rest of my life. Oh my goodness. But yeah, you can find me Instagram Janet.Breitenbach. I love to post about dating stuff, dating questions. In my stories. My website is janetbreitenbach.com, which is being revamped right now. So the next literally 2 weeks to 4 weeks, it'll be all nice. And then, hopefully book out, title to be determined. It's probably going to be Date Better, but we'll see.
Sweet.
Yeah. But yeah, I love this conversation. I truly do believe in just relationships. I think that it's like having a mirror in front of you. They sharpen us. They, they're fulfilling. They're so hard, but they're also super fulfilling. And I think it speaks to what most of us want. We want that intimacy. We want that connection. And again, it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants it, but I do really believe in it because I remember how alone I felt just in my first marriage, just struggling and being confused and not knowing what to do and feeling literally crying and I'm I don't know what to do. So that's why this is my passion. Almost anyone I have boundaries, but almost anyone that reaches out to me for dating or relationship advice, I will make time for them because I just think this is such an important skill that most of us don't learn how to have,
Sure, absolutely.
So, cool.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Janet.
My pleasure. Yeah, thank you guys.
It's our first guest.
And next week you can let me know what keeps percolating about the dating styles, and you can be like, oh my gosh.
Light bulb.
Yes, I want to hear.
I'll just send. Do they have light bulb emojis?
Yes, I'm sure they do.
Oh, thank you guys for tuning in. If you identified with any of these 4 types, leave that comment down below. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. If you are watching us, be sure to subscribe to the channel, share this video with a friend, and like and subscribe. Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. So, on that note, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
And happy 4th of July.